I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods Volcano Block. Now today is going to be pretty epic because we're going to be getting into industrial foregoing and using applied energistics to, of course, automate all of the processes for it. Hopefully this works, as I've never done this before with applied energistics, but my end goal is to be able to make IC2 a little bit easier by allowing us to duplicate villagers. So getting into industrial foregoing is going to be super helpful for that. We can duplicate any mob, including villagers. But also today, we should be able to satisfy our hunger. That's right. There's not been a way up until now that we could automate our eating. And so industrial foregoing also has us covered there. That in combination with modular routers. So let's dive in. Now, getting into industrial foregoing, you may be very familiar with these fluid extractors. If not, basically they take logs. You place a log inside of the middle or next to this extractor, and the log will then get consumed. So if we just take a log real quick and we place it in here, it will slowly but surely get turned into liquid latex, even if there's no power. However, we do want to power them to make them a little bit faster at producing the latex. And then over time, it will consume the log. And there's, of course, logs that are better. I think the best log is acacia logs to use in this setup. You will get more latex per operation. So something to keep in mind when setting this up. For me right now, I'm not super worried about doing this. As you can see, I think this is like trying to catch on fire. I'm not super duper worried about this whole setup. Wow, why are they smoking? That is kind of an odd effect. There's going to be a block underneath them, so maybe that will fix it. But regardless, I'm not super worried about how fast this is going to go, because eventually we're going to have a buildup of this. And it's really only going to be used for a couple of things. So I want to use modular routers in order to place these blocks. It does appear that the wood did catch fire, and it is gone now. But yes, you can see right here, it did produce a little bit of latex from that. So let's place down another log so we can place down a modular router on top. These modular routers, I want them to have a placer module, and I want it to place on the down. So when I put this placer module in and I put a block in here, it's going to place the block directly underneath it. It's pretty darn cool. Like, modular routers is super handy for things like this. So yes, this placer module, we can have it placed down, but I need to get wood in here. And this is where I'm going to use applied energistics to feed the logs into here for this process. But I don't want to use too many channels for this. I really only want an exporter, or yes, an exporter that is going to use one channel. Like, I want to use one. So that means I'll take this modular router here, and I'm actually going to use a distributor module. This has two different modes. You can take it and you can send to the router itself, or pull. It's a pull mode, or it has a send mode. And for us, we're going to do a send mode, and I'm going to send to both of these routers, and anything that goes in this slot right here should get evenly distributed between the two. You can see right here, meaning that I can have an exporter that is just directly connected here. So we'll just place a single export bus right onto this, and we should be able to select logs as our option in the middle. As you can see, you can export more than one items with these things, but you will need upgrade cards in order to do that. But because of what we're working with here, we're going to simply put in this exporter a log, and that should keep this now filled with logs slowly, but we don't really need this operation to be very fast. So no need for speed cards or anything like that. We just need this to run. Now, another thing that I want to collect is fluids. And so I actually want to use modular routers to pull all of the fluids out of here. And we can also use one to send power as well. This is going to be a pretty good example of how modular routers is going to be used, as modular routers is going to be a big part of today's episode. Now, for sending power, it works very similar. So I have a point that's on here with an energy upgrade, and the more energy upgrades you put in here, of course, the higher the power support is. And you can hit I on here and you can see all of the information. But we need to send it, and it's going to work very similar to the distribution module. However, we need to make a power distribution module, which is a little bit different. You can see right here, we'll go ahead and get that crafted up. A lot of ingredients required, so this is where auto crafting really comes into play, but we should be able to use this the same way. Also, we need to check this, and we should be able to select where we're going to be sending the power, and we put that in, and all of these machines should start receiving power once we put this in. So you can see they are now starting to receive power. This is going down, all of them, And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. Now, moving fluids, this is where things get a little bit more complicated because, well, there's not a fluid distributor, unfortunately. Not that I see anyways. There is there's an MK2, which means we can do wireless fluid, but it doesn't appear that there's a higher tier that does the same operation as items with a distribution. Now, even though that is the case, we still should be able to use these in an interesting way. So this still has the option, right, to transfer into router or transfer out of router. So I have 9 of these, and we have 9 slots that we can work with. These can hold up to 9 modules. So in this regard, we should be just perfect, right? We should be able to take one of these for each and have it automatically pull the fluid out. I think by default it is in the pull mode. So you can see right here, it is transferring into router, which is what we want. So for each of these, I can go ahead and link and just toss it in. And we should get 8 of these because we have 8 of the fluid extractors. By the way, if you ever have like an extra card, you can go ahead and put it in your inventory and that will clear all of the settings that were bound to it. Now that I have all of these cards in, we can go ahead and put our upgrade in here. And this should allow fluids to be able to be transferred. So this router's transfers at a 60 mil bucket tick. It doesn't look like it has a tank buffer, which is interesting. But if we grab a tank, maybe this is going to let us use it more or less like a pipe. So jumbo tanks are really great because they store a ton of fluids. And that's all we really need is a place to store this. So I'm going to place this right here. But first, let's go ahead and take a regular fluid card from modular router. And let's take this real quick. Let's see. Let's just make a basic one, right? That's all we need. We just need an MK1. So we'll make an MK1. And usually the difference between an MK1 and MK2 is that MK1 allows you to transfer from the machine to an adjacent side, whereas the MK2 and higher usually allows you to travel distances in order to do it wirelessly. So like in this case, I'm going to send to up, and this is going to be transfer out of router. And I don't know what this means. Force emptying disabled when pouring into the world. Oh, so this can like pour into the world. Yes, we don't want it to pour into the world. So we'll go ahead and keep it like that. But that should be able to send to a bucket once we put this in. And let's go ahead. And let's see, is this going to work? Because this is something that I was very curious about. Okay, so it doesn't seem to be emptying or putting it into here. So that leaves me to believe that for some reason, this fluid upgrade is doing some weird stuff. So now apparently this needs a bucket in order for it to function. And so it will only pull a bucket out. So yes, there it went. Okay. Now it did end up placing into the world, but we want it to place onto the tank and not into the world. And there it goes. So it has done the extraction. And now these will not apparently be transferred into here until there is at least a full bucket of latex, which is fine because this thing holds a lot. So at least it'll do the transfer every time that is available. Very different to a pipe, but I think this situation is kind of cool. And I think this is going to be a really neat operation. So there we go. So now I have all of the latex automated and ready to go after that little bit of confusion. But it's good to learn how modular routers works because this mod I feel is an incredibly powerful part of modded Minecraft and has been in a ton of newer packs. So I feel like into the future, this is going to still be one of the most powerful item routing mods. Now for the next part, we're of course going to need to collect one of those buckets because we need to make ourselves a latex processing unit. So if I go ahead and craft this bad boy up, we then can take some of this fluid and we should be able to send it to the latex processing unit. However, I think at this point, this would be a good time to integrate into our applied energistics system and use a storage bus on this to now make sure we have fluid used inside of our applied energistics system. And this is how we're going to end up automating things in the future. So with a storage bus, all we have to do is simply place it onto the container that is housing the fluids and then just connect it up. So we'll connect it kind of jangly because of course there's not diagonal cables. And now this should be a part of it. I don't even think you have to configure anything in here. So there's really nothing to really worry about. And if we go into our system and go to the show only fluids, you can see right here, we now have the latex inside of the fluid section. So pretty darn cool that we have access to that. And we can use this in auto crafting. Now back to that latex processing unit, because we are going to need to use it as well. And I think what I'm going to do is, for right now, I'm just going to place it here. And this is set up outside here, so that way when we spawn into this area, we have access to all of these machines and they're going to be kind of covered. So how messy this is back here doesn't really matter too much, as the clean stuff is going to happen, or at least supposed to happen, inside of these walls whenever we teleport here and have access to the things that are most important to us. Now this latex processing unit is going to need water, so we should be able to set this to pull, and that's going to pull water in. It also needs power, and well, it's going to need a bucket of latex. So back in here, I thought I used a bucket basically to craft this, so we're going to need another bucket of latex in order to craft our first pieces of plastic. So there we go, we put that in, and this is going to slowly but surely process some small pellets. Eventually we're going to have this automated, but I think the first thing I want is to have enough to make a dissolution chamber, so that way we can start processing some speed upgrades and get those speed upgrades working inside of these latex extractors or fluid extractors, and that way this whole process just sort of jump starts. So this, I just need enough in order to make a dissolution chamber. Then I can use the residual fluid we have here for some auto crafting of some speed upgrades. Now I almost forgot an important thing. I was like, why are these not placing blocks down? Well, actually, they will work if you put a security upgrade in them to bypass your protection. But by default, over here with this setting, there's something that we kind of need to change if we're playing in single player, and it's allow fake players. And so I'm going to go ahead and allow that, so I don't have to worry about security upgrades. But if you wanted to bypass that, you could just put a security upgrade in here, and then it would allow it to place, which was the problem that I was having with the modular routers not interacting with things. So now, for the magic to happen, that's right, I'm going to go ahead and get the dissolution chamber made, and this is where everything from Industrial 4 Going gets crafted. Perfect. This thing is beautiful. Now, I want to use this, and I want to auto-craft. So, with Applied Energistics, we should be able to just simply use a pattern provider, and I do not have this crafted. By the way, I do have 3 terminals. I need to compact them down into 1 terminal. I should be able to do that. But I have 3 different hotkeys. So I have a hotkey where I open my main grid. I have a hotkey that opens up my crafting, which is very convenient, by the way. Open up my crafting, and then I can go ahead and craft something. And I use another hotkey set to Control F that allows me to put the crafting inside of one of our terminals. So then I can just open this back up, and I can go and just craft it. Look how simple that is. Oh, it's so convenient. I love this. So I'm glad that we moved into Applied Energistics. So I should be able to automate this in a single block. This sounds crazy, but we should be able to do that. I am going to need my cable to be able to hook into the pattern provider. And slowly but surely we're using up channels. It does appear right here that we are using 1 channel on this line. At this corner intersection, the channels change. So we can go up here and see how many channels we're actually using. So do not look at this to tell how many. You really have to look at where everything's connected and all of the intersections to be able to tell. And I think there's also a wrench that you can use to be able to see the full network and how everything's going on. But anyways, pattern provider. Let's talk about this. So one of the first things that we want to craft is going to be the upgrade to the machines that allows us to make all of our new machines from Industrial 4 Going. And that is going to be an upgrade from a pity machine frame to a simple machine frame. So in this, I do want to have these automated, which I think I have. We can tell if we hover over this and it turns blue. That means we have a pattern for it. So something that we don't have a pattern for appears to be netherrack, right? But we can actually craft and smelt netherrack. So let's go ahead and do a craft for netherrack from our supply of netherrack pebbles, which is kind of nice. And then we can do a smelting recipe, which is a processing recipe. So we can put the craft inside of here and the smelt inside of the area that we have all of our smelting stuff going, right? So perfect. So we have that ready to go. Now this is where this should handle fluid crafting, but I don't know until I do my first craft, right? So this is ready to go. This right here, I want to do a request on. It's going to require some plastic. Don't have that set up just yet, but we will set it up here soon. And we can go ahead and set our first craft, right? It's going to use a little bit of latex. It's going to use and request this, and it's going to craft that, craft the gears, and we should be able to do a process for this. So if we put that in here, I'm hoping that when it deals with fluids, it allows it to send to it, and also allows the fluids to be handled properly, and only send once it is hopefully it only sends the fluid per crafting operation like refined storage does. But I think for the inputs, I don't know if we have to tell it what to do, because I think this will push. But on the pull, on the output, I do want to make sure this pushes back in so we can handle everything in a single block space. If only we could send power through these things as well, then it would be phenomenal. But the back, we want to push these back into this. That way it goes back into our system. So that's very simple. We just need a point. And once we have ourselves some power to this bad boy, things should be ready to go. Oh, I need to get these on AutoCraft as well. That'd be kind of convenient, wouldn't it? So just give it some power on the top. And then I need to get a little bit more latex over here into this, so that way I can get this, get a couple more pieces of plastic so we can try at least 2 crafting operations to see how it handles that. So now that I have everything set up, let's go ahead and try and craft 2. So it shows that it's going to do the craft, and it looks like it did do exactly like refined storage does, where it puts it in just like it's supposed to, puts in the fluid. Oh, that's perfect. Oh, that makes the auto crafting so much nicer. I remember when things used to be way more difficult. Yep, and then as soon as that operation filled, you didn't even see it happen, but it ended up immediately adding. And we have the product right here. Oh, the auto crafting is going to be so nice. So now that auto craft is set up, we definitely need to get our speed upgrades on auto craft. So we will make all of these speed upgrades that are going to be the tier 2. So there's 3 different ones. There's a speed, there's an efficiency, and there's a processing. All of these are used in all of these machines, and it's definitely worth getting on auto craft as soon as possible. And all of these are going to use that latex. So definitely worth getting set up. And you can see here how this is going to make it so much easier. Oh man, imagine doing all this by hand. Well, actually, I can't imagine, because I have done it in the past. Because I learn every new series, I learn new things, and well, this is just something that I've learned over the last few years. Now, I just did several tests to try and get infinite water working, so that way I can pipe into here. But for some reason, there's a weird interaction going on with Applied Energistics that's not allowing me to use water, no matter what source I give it. I cannot send to, for example, any tank. So if we make this tank, the Applied Energistics is not sending, even though we have plenty of channels. We have plenty of channels here, 5. And then if I place this, it's just not working. So, for example, I place this down, I put a bus here, and we want water. If I place that there, it is not sending water into this tank. And there's no redstone control or anything like that. And you can notice right here, this is not working. And I think... yeah, there's no like fluid interaction card or anything like that we need to worry about. So yeah, the water in this particular case just doesn't go through. However, it is sending latex. I do have latex on an export bus that is taking from our source here and putting it into this machine. However, I can't get water to move. I don't know what the reason is, but water's not moving. So in that particular situation, what I'm going to do is just put down here the sink. I know that's the simplest solution to this whole problem, but yeah, we're gonna have to put a sink back down here, and then we'll just have this automatically pull. And then this will start the production of our material. And by the way, yes, I did also try an ME interface, and the ME interface was not working as well. So I don't know what the weird interaction is going on here, but yeah, unfortunately the interface isn't working. And I actually do want to use an interface here instead of what I'm currently using. So the interface is pretty nice because I can take our resulting product here and I can output it to the back, and that should push into the interface. But the good thing is with the latex, we can also have this send to this. And so this should also be able to pull latex from this source. Oh, hopefully it can. I believe once it drops down below a certain point, bucket or whatever, we can have this pull. And there it goes. It starts to refill and it's pulling from this interface source. Also, there is another weird issue I just encountered. The latex here, I put it in this side slot because apparently if it's in the first slot, this has nothing to push to. So it wasn't actually pushing the results into anything. For some reason, it can't read the rest of these. So yeah, there are some weird quirks that I have to get through, but I'm getting them through with you guys. So that's what it's all about. Now, moving into the next section where we're going to be able to have infinite saturation forever, keeping ourselves fed without using RF tools, because of course that is one way you can do it at your base, but this will work or should work cross-dimensionally, I think. We should be able to also get ourselves a mob imprisonment tool now made up. So we just need to craft these things together, and this will go ahead and start the autocraft. And now we should be able to make a mob imprisonment tool like that. So this will allow us to pick up mobs and also duplicate them. But we need ourselves a mob slaughter factory, because this is how we're going to actually get pink slime, and is also how we're going to set up the process of automatically feeding ourselves. Now here's where the fun's going to happen. We are going to utilize this particular farm here for the mob slaughter factory. Now this doesn't actually drop any items. Instead, it's going to send a fluid to both sides when we configure it. It's going to create meat, which is what we're going to use to feed ourselves, and pink slime. So in this particular setup, I'm going to actually use the pink slime. I'm going to send it to the right, and I'm going to have it push, and the meat I'm going to send to the left and have it pushed. So that should eventually send the meat there, but this doesn't work by default. It in the front, it is a very small size. So we actually need to increase that by using a range upgrade, which I did have automated. And this is going to encapsulate the entirety of this particular mob farm here with the tier 3 size. So with that, it should start working, but you notice it's not fast enough, and it's also not powered. It will work in this farm, and it should be able to like randomly select the mobs to kill. As this isn't going to eventually, it's not going to kill everything like super quick. So we can leave both of these running, and they're both going to work very effectively. And the pink slime generation works best on a passive mob farm, so you should get more pink slime this way. However, we do get a lot of liquid meat, and we want to use this liquid meat. So welcome to modular routers again, because we are going to use this to set ourselves up with infinite saturation. Now, before we fully do this, we need to make a player module. This is how everything's going to work, but notice it requires a wither skull. We do have wither skulls, but this kind of reminds me, I should also get wither skull automation started over here. And that means I need to place some witch water in here. I'm going to use the same bucket solution you see right here that's going on in this that we set up when we set up our mob farm, but I'm instead going to use it inside of our hostile mob farm. So all I have to do is place some light in here, and that should stop this mob farm from working. And we can now pop in here and start getting some work done, right? We definitely need to turn off all of our fans, and we need to make witch water. So of course, converting some water real quick is all we need. We just need a single bucket of it. And that is going to go in the middle. Oh man, there's that weird random issue that I for some reason have here. But yes, we're going to set up the same sort of thing. I'm going to go ahead and down here first get my RF tool set up and use the same pattern that we used over here. So this is the setup here on the sequencer, exactly the same. And then it said right here, the redstone signal is received, loop the cycle once. We want it to set to loop all cycles all the time, ignore redstone signals. And then of course a dispenser, and then we'll get the dispenser made. And we should just be able to place it here, and you'll hear the click. Should click twice, and that should be ready for our witch water. Oh boy. And I'm gonna go ahead and break this, get my dark glass ready to go, which I think glass tinted glass. We need to get that set up so that way mobs just don't start flooding out of here, and I'm hoping this works. Place it in, and now we should be ready to go. And it should convert these mobs into their counterparts. So for example, skeletons should turn into, for example, wither skeletons, and things like creepers turn into charge creepers, which is really cool. Oh, but we end up with this issue. Somehow they can still manage to jump out of the glass when converted. So I might need to expand this or give a double pane here just to make sure that doesn't continue to happen. But yeah, that is one little bug that can happen with this tinted glass. So now that that's there, I need to, of course, go in and make sure we get all of those drops, make sure those new drops, as they start to build up in here, get put into new drawers. As wither skeletons and stuff we should get. And of course, putting some beheading upgrades in here is definitely going to get us more than enough wither skeleton skulls. Now, the other things needed for the player module, well, is the Instone. And we actually have access to Instone via our Conjure Essence without needing to go to the end, because we still haven't fought the dragon yet or gone to the end, which I'm not super worried about until we absolutely need to do that. So I should have a Cinder module. And last but not least, we also need a Polar MK2, which we can just go ahead and request that. And last but not least, we need a Wither Skeleton Skull and some Diamond Armor. And this is a player module, a very, very powerful, and I mean powerful module, as you could technically use it to constantly keep your inventory filled with totems in your offhand. Even if the totem breaks, it could instantly fill it no matter what dimension you're in, because I do believe this is cross-dimensional. So we need a basic modular router to get this to work, and we are going to be interacting with the meat feeder from Industrial Foregoing. This is pretty darn cool, and I'm excited to be able to show this. So let's go ahead and get the plastic crafted up real quick. That should insta-smelt, and we have ourselves a meat feeder. Now, by default, the meat feeder can be clicked on a inventory, a bucket, and can fill the meat feeder. We're going to have to do some logistic stuff in order to work with this with modular routers. So what I kind of want is to mess around with some of the filters inside of this machine. So right here, I can place a modular router to interact with this tank and also interact with me as a player. So we are going to need a Cinder upgrade, or actually we need a, I guess we might be able to do it all with the player upgrade, but we are going to need a interaction upgrade, so an activator module. And this is going to use this meat feeder when it is inside the buffer slot. Very cool. So we can actually do the right clicking for us. Now I could feed this through a tank and then have it sent back, but I like the idea of doing it this way. So inside of this, we just needed to right click, perfect. And then we just need to right click down, and we needed to right click only when it is in its empty state, which is it right now. So we set it to whitelist, and we also want it to match MBT. So right now its MBT is currently in its empty state, and we want it to match that MBT. So at this point, if this is in the buffer, to think about it, if it goes into the buffer over there, and it notices that it's empty by seeing the MBT data, it will go ahead and it will fill it back up. And that's when I'm going to need to mess with the player module, right? Because I think we're going to need actually 2 player modules in order for this to work, because the player module works in 2 different ways. It has a from router to player and from player to router. So you can pull and send from your inventory. So we are going to need 2 of these. Now, not to confuse you, but this has a ton of functionality. You can also choose your inventory that it can interact with. So you can have your main hotbar. You can have your main inventory with no hotbar, meaning it'll only interact with these things. You can have your armor slots interacted with, your offhand slot messed with, your ender inventory, and your main inventory. Unfortunately, I don't see the Curo slot, so we're probably going to be today dealing with our main inventory, no hotbar. I think that will be probably the best slot for this. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and get these filtered. So that means we are going to need to, let's just imagine we're starting with it in our inventory. So with that in mind, we need to say from player to router. We want it to, when it is in its empty state, which is currently where it's at, we want to send that to the router. So a whitelist and match MBT. And then this is going to notice, oh, it's going to notice, hey, that this is empty. I need to click. And then once it is clicked, we need to then send to player, and we want to send to the player's non-hotbar. Also, we want to make sure this is set to player inventory, no hotbar. And we want to make sure on this one, we are sending from the router to the player. But instead, we want to make sure that we don't automatically send the empty version. So this, we're going to blacklist and we're going to MBT. And in that, with this particular setup, with it set up very similar like this inside the router, this should automatically keep this meat feeder fed in my inventory and keep it full. So when we put these all in, we're going to notice it should have just clicked, and then it put the filled version back in my inventory. And what this meat feeder does is it constantly should fill my saturation bar. Now, here's another problem that I'm worried about. Does it work while it's in my inventory? Or does it only work when it's in my bobble slot? Because it does say the head slot is where it's at. So it does appear like it should work in my inventory and not need to be in my head slot. So the only way to find out is by taking damage, if we can manage to do that. So here we go. This is a perfect example. I have a cactus. I'm going to take some damage and watch my health, or my haunch bar. Notice the saturation stays right there in the middle. And it should be using this. As you can see, it is going down. But as soon as this hits empty, that process of automatically refilling is going to happen. So this should mean that I should now never need to eat food again. Unless I want night vision, but because most of these things that, like, for example, these soul berries can be eaten even if you have 100% saturation. So this is technically automated food in my inventory. No need to worry about it. All done with industrial foregoing and, well, modular routers yet again. So now that we have pink slime, of course, hooked to this tank, I just need to carry over a network line and just simply get ourselves a storage bus hooked up, and all of the auto crafting that uses pink slime can be done inside the dissolution chamber. Super simple, and I love it. Oh man, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you're learning something new. I hope you learned something new about modular routers and all the different ways it can support items, and I hope you enjoyed a way to satisfy your hunger. Well guys, if you did enjoy, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and also give this video a huge thumbs up. Comment down below what ways would you utilize this this player module. I don't know, I'd love to have some ideas and love for you guys to let me know. And of course guys, it's now time to thank the amazing support of today's video. And that amazing support is going to go to JJTXD over on the Discord, becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. And of course, guys, I hope you enjoyed. And as always, you know how it goes. Thanks for watching. Bye.